Okay, let's get going. Before we start, a refresher on combining multiple JPEGs or other images into a single PDF. So the cleanest way, if we want this one, and I'm using a shift click, control click to grab a couple of those. Selecting things like that in Windows is just like selecting them in Revit. If you want to pick a couple of things, you pick one, control click, control click, control click, keeps picking others. And then right click. If I just pick them, and then right click out here, it loses track of them. It forgets that I've selected them. That's sort of the first thing. So if I've selected them, control click, control click, control click, then with them still highlighted and with the cursor on top of one of them, even that's, well, I'm still selecting this group of things. I right click and say, convert to Adobe PDF will convert each of them individually into a PDF. It's not what I'm looking for here. I want to say combine files in Acrobat into a PDF. And you can pick any image types. And they can include other little PDFs if you want to tack them along. We'll say combine files in Acrobat. And it thinks a little bit. Think. Shows them all there, and I'll say, fine, combine. So now they're have become into one document, a page for each image. We can set the zoom scale down somewhere so we can see them all. And now each one of those has its own page in Acrobat, which you can see if you click on page thumbnails. These can be, this little arrow is always over here to bring up this menu, and Pages will let you see each of those on a separate page. It's not like we have page numbers or anything as we go through these guys. So they show up pretty much the same size over here, but they'll be different sizes just because the images are different sizes as we see them here. Okay, so I'm gonna save this one file, save as. I'm gonna stick it back in the folder where they were stored, which is in my desktop class 8. I'm gonna call this big combined PDF. And let's just go see how big that actually is. I can right click it and go to properties and see that it's 687 kilobytes. Okay, some of the assignment 1 homework files, I think maybe it's because the used cars image was so big, I can't tell. We're like 5 images, but it's like 50 megabytes. Huge file. Don't know where it all comes from. But something we can do, if you've opened one that's really big, we can always go to File, Save as Other, Reduced Size PDF. And that means PDF format already does some lossless compression of images to get those files as small as it can. But especially with big ones, if you go to Reduced Size PDF, make compatible with, whatever, retain existing, okay. I'm just gonna call this one big reduced PDF just for illustration purposes. So reducing PDF size, and then here's this one, and I can go to properties and see that that's 270. So it's a third the size, something like that. And usually the bigger the file, the greater the percentage of compression. But you can certainly take a 50 megabyte file down to 25. I suggest you just try that. It might make the difference between being able to unload it on Blackboard and not, instead of dealing with Cardbox, which is a pain for all concerned. Also, when I'm doing the grading, if you've handed it in on Blackboard, it's right there and I can see it and it's easy to grade. If it's on Cardbox, I got to drag it around and open it up and go back to Blackboard to put in a grade. So also for people who aren't familiar with Windows that much, in any folder, if we just right click somewhere that's not on a file, we can choose to see these in a detail format where we see the name, the date, the type, and other kind of stuff we want to put it in there. We can see it view list, which is just the names of them. View small icons. That just tells you it's an image and a PDF. That I find that one to be useless. view medium icons, at least gets a little preview of it. At least you know which they are, and view extra large icons are useful. But if you got 50 files, you got to scroll them down. With all those, you can sort them by name, so B, 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 C, like that, or you can sort them by date, and you can do this in any view. So if I go sort by date, I get my most recent one at the top of the pile. I think if I do that again, or just click out here, sort by date, it looks like it's reverse sorted them. So my most recent one is down at the bottom. I'm sure that Mac has a much smoother interface, but that's what we got here. I'll use my medium icons just to see how those guys work. Okay, let's talk about screen captures as well. Again, Mac may vary, but pretty much all the images that we'll be working with today are ones that I've found on the web and captured. So I'll go over to my browser, and I'll just go to Google, go there, images. Let's just do wood planks. And let's decide I want to capture one of these as my image we'll be using to make a background with. With some of them, you can right-click and do a save image and actually save it to disk as the thing. Others are made so you can't do that. So in that case, I would try to get like as large a view as possible and use the Windows snipping tool utility. Pick this tool, or its Mac screen grab equivalent. Pick this tool, grab a image, and it looks like it's sort of grabbing everything that was there. It's just whatever pixels are on the screen, it just grabs. And then I go to File, Save As, and I'm going to stick this again in my Class 8 images, test, capture, save. So if you can't like right click and this one I could save image as, well, let's see how that works. So some of them will let you do that, some of them won't. And especially on like the sites where is trying to get you to subscribe to an image service, they won't do that. And I found that generally the Google search will sometimes you'll type that in like in the DuckDuckGo browser, and all it brings up, they're like ones that are brought to the top, and you have to pay for them all. You have to sign up for $8 a month or something. I don't want to do that, and Google works better. You just go to Google Images and type in what you want, and a lot of entirely free images come up. A lot of them from the manufacturers of the product who want you to see it, as opposed to somebody who's just trying to sell you pictures. So there's a lot to explore there, and a couple of different ways to get at them. See what works for you best and keep at it. I can always just drag this in here, I think, this one. Okay, there we go. If you remember, we cropped this guy down, and it was nice because it was already rectangular, and it was easy just to use the crop tool to, I think, I forget just what we did, but this struck me as maybe the cleanest way to do it, where we have that sort of flower in the middle and then 2 half flowers out to the side, and then that'll just repeat forever and ever. But what if you photographed this cool image just on a wall somewhere, and you didn't end up being perfectly straight onto it? And so it's sort of a diminished in perspective. It's just not going to look right. And something I told you about on Tuesday about previewing the image, to define a pattern and to set up a new image and to use that pattern is a much easier way now in this version of Photoshop, which is here's our image. And this is really a great tool. You can go to View, Pattern Preview. Just View Pattern Preview, no new files. And then it shows you what that image is outlined, whatever was on the screen. if it's copied horizontally and vertically. And we can see we've got some edge joint issues. It doesn't match anywhere. So this isn't a new file. It's just a way to view that thing. So we'll go back to View, uncheck Pattern Preview, and get back to the image itself. So what I want to do is two things. One sort is to crop to that larger rectangle and then make it rectangular so it will tile nicely. And this will come up a lot. So the process really is to identify how much we need to keep, crop to that, make it rectangular, and then do a final cleanup crop to finish. We did use this image earlier, but it was rectangular. Now it's skewed, and we need to fix the skew before we do that. The way we're going to do this, to identify this larger rectangle, is if you don't have the rulers turned on here, left and right, go to View, Rulers, and check that. View Rulers. What that allows us to do is to drag. If you click in there and drag, it'll bring a perfectly horizontal line down, and I'm going to put it right here, right where I want to have the upper left-hand corner of the image. Drag it right down. And then same way, I'm going to drag one down to the bottom corner, bottom left corner. And if these need to be moved, we can just select them. We get the little selection move thingy there, and the same in from here, and the same in from this side. Because what we're going to do is crop down to this rectangle. These are called guides. With the guides here, then I'll go to the crop tool, and the crop boundaries are always horizontal and vertical, as are the guides, and it'll just magnetically sort of click onto the guide. And this, if you're working with photographs you've taken, there's a nice brick pattern or any old thing you want to use, you end up using this quite a lot because those will never be perfectly vertical and horizontal. Just hit enter and it'll work. Like Rivet, there's also this check mark up here if your screen is wide enough to display it. So much better, but still a little skewed. So now with this layer being, to manipulate this layer, a background layer, you have to convert it to a regular layer to unlock it so it can be stretched. Just click that, that's all it takes. And its name changes from background to layer 0. And then with that layer, it can be that you have no layers selected, like right now, so I can't do anything to anything. But I want to click my layer 0 so I can work on this image. Go to Edit, Transform, and previously we had used Scale. Here I want to use Skew. And what Skew does is let me move any of these points, but in only one direction at a time. I can't accidentally sort of go off at an angle, and that's very helpful. I'll go over here and just drag this out till my corner point lines up with that. This one looks pretty good because that's where we placed it. This one I need to really zoom in. And then that one needs to zoom, pull up. And once we have that, our image itself is stretched, but the area that we want to define is now a rectangle that can repeat, infinitely nice. So I'll say OK. And those same edges are still picked for the crop command. I hit crop. That one just hit enter. Enter. Crop something. But look at this. This is severely weird. I think, yeah, we're going to kill Photoshop. Okay, bring that back up. We'll see. I'll get right there quickly back to it. It's a good thing this is a long class. So where was I? 57 skewed. I'll do this real fast. And again, it's like anything else. Once you've practiced it a couple of times and get the feel for it, then you can just apply it to another. Apply it to sort of any old image. Okay, there's that. And now I want to do the stretching. Update that. Select that layer. Edit. Transform. Skew. Pull it out. Pull it up. Pull it down. And check. Okay. Okay. So there's that. Now I'm going to, so that was cropped. Now I can turn those guides off again. View, those show up as like extras. There are a couple of different control things we can do there just to turn them off. And the last, I blew this down here a little bit, as we'll see. The last thing I want to do is shooting on an angle, we sort of shrunk it laterally, even though keeping the vertical height the same. So I want to tell Photoshop now, make this so it's an even 1:2 proportions here. So when we go into Revit, we don't have to fiddle with that and stuff. So we'll go into image size. And I'm just gonna measure these in pixels. And you'll see right now it's 577 this way by 324. That way, let's just make the height 300. And I'm gonna check, unselect that to let these just vary independent of each other. I'm gonna make it 600 wide and 300 high. So that'll just go right up to 2 by 4 feet, 4 by 8 feet. Okay. And there are a couple of different ways. It's going to have to be creating some pixels and deleting some pixels. And there are a couple of different ways to do that, which I don't understand. I just go automatic and hope it'll do the best one and say, okay. So it thinks a little bit. There we go. So now if I go to, so it stretched it a bit. So it should now be 300 by 300 that way. Let's just check image size. Yeah, 300 by 600. So we're good. So this, I'm going to do file, because it's a JPEG to start with, I can do, I pretty much always do save as or save a copy just to make sure I'm getting a JPEG out of this. Save a copy. Anyway, I would save a copy. I would call it wall pattern 57 seamless, something like that. So I know I can use it in, and I might even call it seamless 2:1. So anybody using it in some other application will know, okay, it's supposed to be stretched, not a square. So give it the proportions that you want. For online attendees, I think I'm going to restart my computer, which is going to take a while, but this is screwing up too much to keep going with. So come back in 5 minutes or something and reconnect. Okay, let's move along. We were fortunate with that image that by the time we defined our rectangle, it came to the edge of sort of a logical break in the image itself. If we go to the one called cobblestone here, well, let's start out just by seeing how this looks, how it will look tiled. I mean, if it's already there, go for it. And a bunch of them online are. So let's just go to view, pattern preview, or objects. Well, okay. So what we can see here is because this part of the image is more than half of a cobblestone, these guys and these guys look fatter, so we need to do some adjusting, probably to crop right down to some of our seams that way. And then it looks pretty good right to left. Like that looks like the regular coursing. We don't have any either stretched out or super short. So let's just work on the top and the bottom here. So we'll view unpattern preview. And the only thing we need to be careful here of is when if we're going to crop out this bottom row, if we start with a partial brick, we should end with a full brick. So we go partial, full, partial, full, partial, full on the way up instead of having some sort of partial, partial, full, full, partial, partial. So let's see if this comes down to here. If this is our new, this is a useful image because it's actually created in an app from a tile company, so you can make your own stuff. So they're always sort of perfect that way. So if I'm going partial, full, I think right across here is where I'll do this next line. So just in the middle of the joint somewhere. Okay, that looks good. So now I'm going to crop to there. Undo that. Crop here and crop. Okay. Let's see what that looks like. Don't show that again. Say again. This is in week 4 course content, and I actually got the image from a masonry company that sells this stuff. Well, I mean, that was the source of the image, and then it's here in the course content, Blackboard week 4. So that's pretty good, except for, you can see right here, it changes from dark to light, and over here, there's a pretty visible change. These look pretty good, actually. So one of the nice things about this tiled view, this pattern preview, is we can use the cloning tools from here over into here. So I'm just going to make, see, this brick right here is the same as this right here. No, it's the same as, it's hard to figure out. I'm just going to try to make that joint sort of go away. And I'm just going to use our regular clone tool, clone stamp tool, maybe make that a little bigger. Keep the hardness down. And I'm going to use, so I'm just going to borrow some from here and use it over there. So Alt click to set my source. And then you see I've got that edge of that joint line. I can move that so it's there and just sort of go like this. Oh, I gotta mess with this a little bit. You can just sort of clean that up so that this now matches what's over there. And these all update at the same time. Watch, this is really cool. If I use the brush tool and black and brush tool, is this going to keep happening to me? Oh, okay, it's just slow. I need to view, uncheck that. Oh, this really bites. I don't know if it's asking more of this computer than it can give. But the point is, as you will discover, if you just paint somewhere in the middle of that image, or actually in any of those rectangles, it will show up on the others, so you can sort of immediately preview what's going on there. So I hope you can see what that did. Okay, I don't know how this is going to work because we're going to start getting more and more complicated things. I think I just won't use the preview tool on this computer. I seem to be okay, but as soon as I do that, it just messes out. You guys can do it and tell me how it looks. So in number 2 here on the sheet, we cropped it and stretched it. Here we cropped it, retouched it so the edges weren't visible. On number 4 here, we need to crop an image. This is with the brick wall image in class 8. This guy. We're going to need to crop down to a parallelogram, distort that back into a rectangle, and then retouch it. And that's not that unusual. Well, I don't think this computer's going to hack it, so I'm going to just shut down. I'm thinking the assignment for this will be, since it might not be something you'd necessarily do for studio, to photograph in a scene something you would like to repeat as a, let's just say as a wallpaper, as a wall covering. That's sort of an easy way to think about it. A couple of things to bear in mind with that. It's really hard when an image goes from light to dark across like the wall over here from one side to another, because then you get light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, and it's nearly impossible to fix with any of the tools I know in Photoshop. If you're taking it yourself, and that will be the assignment, you take it with your own camera, cell phone, whatever. So the resolution should be good. So make sure that occupies a substantial part of the image. We can have, electrical cords and furniture and stuff around the edges, but some pretty good area, but even illumination. Well, maybe we should have 2 assignments. One, something that looks like a wallpaper, dum, 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 dum. And then another use of it that I'm just thinking this through in my head, haven't done the assignment yet, is sort of a continuous image, and we're not aware of repeats. What will it take for that to do? And I'll outline some options here. If you're just doing 8 bricks and one of them is black, you go black brick, but you can just see that immediately. How can we make things not so obvious? Well, that was a pain.